So the other day, we took a look at the Nike Air Max origins with the Air Max 1 Big Bubble, the first ever retro of that sneaker. But today, we're taking a look at the future of it. So here we have the box. It's the regular Nike box that pretty much most of the Nike sneakers come in, so no special packaging whatsoever. So let's not spend too much time on that. Let me show you guys today's pair of sneakers. It's the Nike Air Max Pulse. Okay, so here we have them, guys. This is the latest flagship Nike Air Max model, and they're looking pretty different, to be honest. These dropped on Air Max Day and kind of got overshadowed by the main sneaker release for that day, which obviously was the Air Max 1 Big Bubble. And obviously that pair stealing the spotlight from this pair of shoes is perfectly understandable. I mean, it's the first ever retro of that sneaker from 1986. But once all of the dust settles, I feel like this pair of shoes has the potential to be one of Nike's most popular sneakers. They retail at a pretty reasonable $150 out in the US or 145 pounds if you're here in the UK. And look, I've seen plenty of Air Max sneakers that cost a lot more than this shoe, like the VaporMaxes or the Air Max Scorpion. Those are literally 200 pounds plus. So I definitely think that the retail price on these being fairly reasonable is definitely going to help these things be a little bit more popular than they otherwise would if they're stupidly expensive. And another reason why I can see this sneaker being super popular is just historically speaking, the flagship sneaker that Nike puts out for each year tends to be super popular. We've seen this time and time again. Nike puts out this brand new Air Max sneaker for that year, and then you just start seeing it on everybody's feet. Now, you may be looking at these and seeing a lot of the Air Max 270 in them, and you're not wrong. These do take on the exact same construction as the Air Max 270, having this split midsole. You've got the massive air unit around the heel area of the midsole, and then it's kind of split into two. You've got the foam at the forefront. And you can actually see on the midsole of this, it says 270 on there. So even though they don't call this pair of shoes the Nike Air Max 270 2.0, they have a completely different name for it, you could argue that there is a lot of Air Max 270 DNA in here. These, however, feature a brand new cushioning technology that Nike calls the point-loaded system. So according to Nike, it's basically a plastic clip that distributes weight to targeted points across the air unit, which is supposed to give you a unique experience full of bounce. Now, honestly, I think that some of that is just marketing. They use a lot of technical words and they make it sound like some revolutionary cushioning system that they placed inside this sneaker. And while some of that could be just technically true, the real truth of this pair of shoes is when you actually put it on foot. And after I've been wearing these for a while, well, I actually think they feel really great. Now look, I'm not gonna say that it's a whole new experience when you put your foot in these, but I will say that they are extremely comfortable and they do feel very stable on foot. I think that's been some of the challenges I've had with other Air Max sneakers. Sometimes Nike adds these ridiculously massive air units to the pair of shoes, or sometimes Nike splits up the midsole into two different types of cushioning and it ends up feeling just super unstable. But I will say that these do feel very, very good on foot. They feel stable. stable, they feel comfortable. I feel like just the perfect amount of softness and cushioning. Like, you're not going to be getting anything insanely squishy like you find on some of the other running sneakers, but I will say that it's kind of a perfect balance between a firm feeling underfoot and a nice soft cushion feeling. The foam they added to the forefront of this sneaker actually feels really nice. Like, it feels cushioned and soft. They don't actually state what type of material this is, but it feels soft. Now, just before I start talking about the upper, I do just want to highlight one kind of issue that I found wearing this pair of shoes, and that is this fabric that they actually put right above the air unit around the back of the shoe. So basically, it's another section of foam right above that air unit that they've layered over the top with this fabric feeling material. And I've got to say, aesthetically speaking, it looks nice, and it also feels nice in hand. It definitely adds something a little bit different to this pair of sneakers, but practically wise, it was a bit annoying. Like, I know I wore these out in the rain, and maybe it's not ideal conditions, but I immediately started having like dirt splatters and different pieces of dirt kind of seeping into that material there, and it actually took me some time to scrub it out. So I think over the long run, this could definitely get stained, and you could have a bunch of marks which would just make these shoes look pretty terrible over time. Now, the upper is really where Nike changes things up, especially if you're comparing these to the Air Max 270. These definitely have more of a retro look. Like, when I first saw them, I thought it was a really nice mixture of like retro sneaker mixed with a futuristic sneaker. And they look even more retro when you compare them to some of the other Air Max sneakers that Nike has released. Some of them look incredibly futuristic. These, for the most part, have a mesh-based upper, which is very reminiscent of retro running shoes from back in the day. And that mesh is really for the top of the shoe and the tongue. You can see it's kind of split paneled by this synthetic material. Now, I'm not entirely sure if they're trying to make this material look like leather, but it definitely doesn't really feel like it. It has this kind of grippy texture to it, so yeah, it does feel pretty synthetic in hand. So it gives this pair of shoes a layer of protection from rain splatters or mud or anything like that from getting into the mesh, which would be a lot harder to actually scrub out. According to Nike, the general design for this pair of shoes comes from the London music scene. I mean, Air Maxes are definitely one of the most popular sneakers in the UK, so it makes sense that they draw some inspiration from London with this pair of shoes. And round towards the back of this sneaker, you can see they've added a big old plastic heel counter to give you more stability when you're walking around in them. Now, the branding on this pair of shoes is actually pretty funny to me. It almost seems like they added this Nike swoosh and then they covered it up with this panel. They looked at it and they were like, no, people are not going to know that this is a Nike sneaker, so they added an extra tiny Nike swoosh on top of that. Nike's got to make sure their logos are all over these things. You get another Nike swoosh on the medial side. This time it is embroidered. You get another Nike swoosh around the back, one on the mid, so they're all over this pair. Wearing these shoes around is definitely a pretty nice feeling on foot. They're definitely comfortable. You can feel that they're made for lifestyle, walking around, standing around. They'll get you through a full day on your feet, no problem. Again, like I said, they don't have the insane squish that you get with some of the other running shoes if you're accustomed to that. Don't just look at this air bubble and think you're going to be walking on clouds. It doesn't work like that. And when it comes to sizing, I went with my true to size and they pretty much fit me perfectly. I will say that they were a little bit tight around the toe box, so maybe that's something to keep in mind. If you are slightly wider footed, you might want to go a half size up. It's an easy pair of shoes to style. It looks good on foot. It's comfortable. The price point is relatively reasonable. It's actually a nice change up for an Air Max sneaker. The kind of road that Nike was going down with a lot of these later versions of the Air Max were way more futuristic and experimental. But listen, guys, you know my thoughts on these. Let me know yours down in the comment section below. Thank you so much for hanging out with me, and hey, if you want to check out that Air Max One Big Bubble I was talking about, that video's right there.